management research.
Hello and welcome to the Management Research Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Eugene. Hello and welcome to my next mini-series in the Management Research Podcast, and this mini-series will be dedicated to the topic of psychological games as postulated by Berne. And in the first episode, I think I should just introduce who was Berne and why do we need to investigate this interesting theory that he came up with. The theory is called transactional analysis. And he was a psychoanalyst, and the psychoanalyst is something between the psychology and psychiatry, those people who try to understand people's problems. And I think the most known would be the Sigmund Freud, an Austrian psychoanalyst who made a very deep analysis trying to understand what happens within people's head and what is the unconscious and how it drives our behavior. Through analysis of different associations of dreams that are partly just depiction of what happened, the associations, he tried to understand the reasons for people's problems. Carl Gustav Jung was another one who focused not on the intuition, what happens within the head of people and how they intuitively come to some decisions. He focused on the typology. He tried to put people into groups based on certain skills that he held for important. For example, are you an extrovert or introvert? Or are you the person who is feeling or thinking? So those people who are more intuitive and those who people are more analytic. Interestingly, nowadays, this method wouldn't work just because many skills that he proposed at that time, they would be interrelated and we would have the huge problem with the discriminant validity. Nevertheless, the Myers-Briggs test identificator, the MBTI test, that is still applied at some firms, and this test is based actually on the ideas of Carl Gustav Jung. So they try to analyze you based on your simple questionnaire, based on the 4 dimensions where they put you and say that you are a specific type of personality. Why did we need this at that time? Actually, we wanted to understand how people think, how people feel, and how to reduce the number of conflicts and how to increase the quality of communication within the team. For instance, when I was HR manager, we also applied this method where we tried to test the employees from from one of our departments, and they had internal conflicts, and we showed, for example, it's not that we showed, actually we talked to them and we showed them that they have different ways of communication and they have different ways of judgment and they also have different types of personality that leads to misconceptions, because the thing that one person thinks for obvious and absolutely normal would be non-obvious and non-normal for the recipient who prefers to speak in a different way and who works with information in a different way. These are the 2 most known psychoanalysts, and the third one would be probably Berne. And in his approach, he changed something. He was not like Sigmund Freud and he was not like Carl Gustav Jung in his approach, and he even included some pieces from the game theory that became popular at that time. His idea was that if you want to understand the reason for the conflicts, if you want to understand what kind of problems a person is going through, you have to understand the transactions of this person. Transactions means the communication when one person talks to another person. So it's called the transaction, and the theory was called the transaction analysis theory. Theoretically, looking at how people communicate, whom they speak to, the way they're speaking, the emotions they're showing, and actually what is behind the words said, was the key approach to what he suggested. And in the next episodes of this podcast, we're going to talk about the suggestions by Berne, what he suggested and how exactly he wanted to analyze the transactions, what was then different. Later, he came up not only with the idea why the conflicts appear, he also came up with the idea what are the psychological games. Very specific constellations that lead to problems in the communication and that kind of don't lead to immediate conflicts, but make your life within your organization or within your family, let's say, very hard and unpleasant. I will try to give you examples that will help you both within your personal life but also within your professional life to establish better communication with those people who surround you based on the theory of Berne. Again, I would like to Also mentioned that Eric Berne is a very criticized psychoanalyst for several reasons, and now he is not being named and often not being studied because of some of his, let's say, some of the words he said about the LGBTQ community and about roles of females and roles of males and different other things that we now know are not true, but as he also referred to them, we now try to avoid these references in our research. But anyway, some things that he developed, namely the transactional analysis and other types of analysis, they still remain very useful. So to use them or not to use them, to read his book or not to read his books, actually there are many books of him, it's really up to you. Anyway, in the next episode we are going to talk about the main idea of the transactions within a conversation. What happens, who speaks to whom. Stay with me and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.